fashionable sock person. Actually, I have two different colored shoelaces on today, too, a red and a blue. Yeah. How many trends can one person start, though? So just ignore that. Forget I ever said it. All right, so today we're talking about practical decarbonization. And I do think how do we balance the energy investments that we're making with the need for affordability? I mean, affordability is big in the news lately. There's certainly lots of pressure right now to evaluate the CLCPA, the climate law in New York State, and how realistic is it to meet some of the goals we heard last night from Rich Dewey from NYPA that will certainly miss certain targets in terms of renewable electricity as a part of the balance in the grid. And certainly this is, I think, a good time to take stock. And this is a session that will highlight some folks that are thinking about ways that we can do that, ways that we will do that, ways that we need to think about doing that from a few different perspectives. We've got the Brain Trust here, or Brian. It happens, So they're close. All the same, letters are included, but just a little rearranged. But Brian will bring perspective from a gas-only utility, and certainly, I think, deep thinkers about their business historically, and then what decarbonization or what reductions in emissions mean for a utility like that, and he brings some nice perspective on that. Joe Kessler from NYPA will talk to us, give us a little bit of an overview of the scale and scope of NYPA, which is nice to have, and then some of the geothermal initiatives that they have. But they've got a lot of stuff going on in the energy space, and certainly a wealth of knowledge about a lot of the building infrastructure that we have in New York State that really could be focused in a way that we could do conversions on a large scale, and, lots of buildings that NYPA touches. Rachel is going to bring the perspective from an engineering design company and also some business model ideas about how it might work. And also, when we are engineers, we're trying to think about how do we take this in stages such that we get to the goal we need to get to, and how quickly can we reasonably get there based on budgets and also just the energy affordability issues. And then there's VGS. VGS is just a crazy utility from another state, and they've got some great ideas about, they're in a different regulatory regime, so the pressures are different. They're not without pressure, but they have different forces working on them, and they've got some unique perspectives on how they can move also from being a gas-only utility to one that's involved in reduction of emissions and maybe shifting business models. So we'll hear from Richard on that. A few of these might be my clients, but we don't need to get into that right now. So I want to start out with Brian and have him talk to us a little bit about what National Fuel is thinking in terms of the projecting out. There you go. Make sure that's on. You're good.
See, this works. So there's actually a woman at the New York Department of Public Service that continues to address me as Brain in every email. She's been doing it for probably 5 or 6 years now. So I view it as a compliment. But yeah, thank you for having me this morning, and great to be on this panel. We work with a lot of the groups here. National Fuel has long been an advocate for practical, balanced, all of the above, all options approaches to decarbonization. So, and we believe in responsible decarbonization grounded in reliability and affordability. And we think options like geothermal are one of those tools in the toolkit that we should continue to explore and try to exploit. A little bit about National Fuel for those that don't know us. As John alluded to, simply, we are a natural gas company. We're vertically integrated. We operate from the wellhead to the burner tip. We are a large producer of natural gas in the Appalachian region of Pennsylvania. Been responsibly producing there for many years. We operate a interstate pipeline and storage business that keeps gas moving throughout the region and allows gas to be reliably there on the coldest of days. And then we also have a large utility segment. I think everybody knows we operate in New York, but we also serve the Erie, Pennsylvania region, and then we just recently acquired and hope to close later this year on a utility in Dayton, Ohio. But as John said, we are a gas-only utility in New York, the largest in New York, which I think gives us a pretty unique perspective. We've been doing it for 125 years. We're based in Buffalo, and we have 125 years of experience and expertise as being the low-cost operator of a cold climate winter peaking season or system that consistently and reliably meets the needs of our 500,000 customers on the coldest of days. Like other utilities in the state, we have also been exploring and developing a U10 pilot of our own. We're currently a little behind some of the other utilities. That's not because we've been dragging our feet on the issue. We actually had a pilot project up and running in development when they passed the U10 law. And unfortunately, due to economics, we had to scrap that and sort of pivot to a new project. So that found us a little behind, but we're continuing to make progress there. We're wrapping up our phase 2 design filings and planning our first test bore here, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, which we're excited about. I've been in a few sessions in the last the last 2 days that have talked about a little bit about our project. Maybe just to summarize, the project really aims to do two things. One is decarbonize an existing district system that serves a few municipal buildings in downtown Buffalo, including City Hall, and then also electrify 12 residential apartment complexes that are nearby. That's part of a affordable housing community. It's a unique project, one that we're really excited about. It leverages two sources of thermal energy, one waste heat recovery from a 96-year-old brick sewer line that's running nearby, which is a pretty interesting thing, and then we're going to supplement the requirements there with a bore field. One of the great things about this project is from the start, we've had two willing customers, so customer acquisition really wasn't a challenge for us. And that includes the city of Buffalo, and we've had recent turnover in the mayor's office there. We've been continuing to work with his administration, so they've been great. It checks a lot of the boxes that UTENJA had in the proceeding, but I would say that we remain concerned about cost. It's a $46 million project serving a limited amount of customers, and so as excited we are about from a technical standpoint, we remain concerned about ratepayer impacts. So on to maybe our perspective here as we sit 6 years into the climate law. I'll say New York energy policy has been since the passage of the CLCPA has been pretty fixated on rapid electrification at really any cost. Cost, affordability, reliability has been taken a back seat and not prioritized. And natural gas has largely been viewed as a problem, as an obstacle to meeting our decarbonization goals versus a tool, a way to get there. And for a while, decarbonization has become an all or nothing proposition. And we like to say letting perfect getting in the way or being the enemy of good. So we think that's been a mistake and a principal reason why the state really hasn't made a lot of progress in meeting its climate goals. The benefits of natural gas as a part of the energy mix continues to be clear. It's abundant, it's reliable, it's affordable. Up to this point, natural gas has played a key role in the decarbonization of the economy of the United States as a clean energy alternative. It's displaced coal throughout the country, lowering the emissions profile of our electric grid. But I think going forward, if we want actual progress and continued progress in things like building decarbonization, we need to start viewing it as a clean energy enabler. Certainly, from the standpoint of the build-out of renewables, wind, solar, you need something to scale with that build-out. As a gas company, we're not against renewables, but we know that due to the intermittency of those resources, you need something to back that up when it's not available, and you need to scale the build out of natural gas as you grow, things like natural gas as you grow renewables. But as we think about the focus and the challenge of decarbonization, we need to focus strategically on cost-effective measures, things that you're going to be able to scale in the market, that's going to be attractive to the market. And I think being open to things like hybrid approaches that leverages the positive attributes of natural gas is something that will help us make continued progress. One option that I don't think we should close ourselves off to in the context of geothermal and U-10s is we shouldn't close ourselves off to leveraging natural gas for peak shaving. We think that can significantly reduce the cost, which is a big barrier to scaling U-10s and geothermal. It also reduces the resource requirements and addresses some of the load imbalances. Our team, oh, thank you. Can I keep the other one? Okay, thanks. So, our team in this slide shows an example where we modeled the U-10, a U-10 for 50 new homes in the Buffalo area. And if you build the U-10 to just meet 55% of the peak instead of 100% of the peak, and use gas or something else, this doesn't mean it has to be gas, but something else that's cost effective to handle those peak loads, you can trim the number of boreholes that you need significantly and reduce the capital costs and upfront costs required. And in this case, you're still using the system, the geothermal system, to address and capture 95% of the total load. And we think being open to gas in these sorts of arrangements will reduce the cost and make these systems more economically viable. So, as the state looks to implement things like the All Electric Buildings Act, as the state looks to increase the availability of affordable housing supply, we think hybrid approaches like this can deliver on significant emissions reductions in a cost-effective and durable way. Economically, electrification struggles to compete, and that's been the struggle all along. And it's particularly in Western New York, where natural gas has a significant economic advantage. We've seen residential rates, electric rates, increase throughout the state, particularly in Western New York. We've seen them almost double in the last 5 years. The gap, gas is part of that explanation, but the gap between gas and electric, when you put them on par on an energy equivalency basis, is widening. And so a couple of things here is the good news for, I think, geothermal is what we're seeing is this trend is approaching a point where U-10s and geothermal is becoming more and more competitive with air source heat pumps. But the gap between gas hybrids, a traditional gas user remains large, which makes wide-scale adoption of electrification challenging, absent something like a government mandate. So, I guess just to close here, we think hybrid approaches will help level the playing field. It'll make electrification be able to be adopted on a wider scale. And while it may not be perfect, to some it's better than good and can be used to jumpstart progress in a real way. Yep.
Just keep moving me down there. All right, let's bring up Joe Kessler from NYPA.
Thank you, John. Thanks, Brian. So my name is Joe Kessler. I'm the Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer of the New York Power Authority, and this is a very friendly room to me. I see my cohort, the CFO, Adam Barsky, you saw, somebody you might have seen speak at the last session out in the audience. Him and I come up with great ideas, and this table right here gets it done. This is a lot of NYPA folks right here, so appreciate them being here, listening to what we're doing today. So talking about the practical decarbonization and balancing energy investments and affordability for the New York Power Authority. So for those, I know there's an international crowd here. For those who don't know who the New York Power Authority is, we're an instrumentality of the state. We are a separate authority. We do have a separate board. They are nominated by our governor and confirmed by the Senate, so there is a government tie to it. But we do operate as an independent utility as much as many of the investor-owned utilities. And we have the fortunate advantage of having a mission and a vision that allows us to look long-term, to have kind of a multiple bottom line approach, not necessarily beholden to investors, but really focused on ratepayers and other stakeholders in the state. So our mission is to lead this transition to a carbon-free economy in an economic way that benefits everybody. We also have a unique position in that not only do we execute on behalf of the state the missions that are derived by that by the government, but we also have an ability, we have a seat at the table to inform them about things and technologies that may advance those goals in a more practical way. So when you look at our organization, we do operate 17 generating facilities across the state. These are largely hydropower facilities. We do have some fossil fuel plants right down here in what they call Zone J and K in the New York ISO. These are natural gas peakers and some dual fuel plant, the Zeltman plant, which is a 500 megawatt plant in Astoria, New York. And out on Long Island, we have a 150 megawatt dual fuel plant that also operates on behalf of the folks in Long Island. We have one small storage project. That's the 17th. We've been for many, many years talking about 16 generating stations. So that's the 17th. It's 20 megawatts up in the Willis, really the North Country, what we call, so near Messina. We're constantly expanding our transmission, and all of this really is to tie it together for economic development for the state. So we are able to dedicate a lot of those electrons and the revenues from those electrons to economic development across the state and hydro allocations to customers. That can be commercial customers, municipalities. There's 51 munis and co-op that we serve directly that benefit from low-cost hydropower, and there's other industries that do as well. And it nets a number of benefits to the state on the order of $50 billion in investments from other organizations, and probably accounts for nearly half a billion jobs. So quite a contribution to the state. And we have a number of programs that drive that. So as you might have seen or heard Adam talk, sometimes it's up to 20%, 25%, but 15% of the state's total electric demand is being served from the New York Power Authority. We have a number, over 1,000 power and energy services customers. And again, as I pointed out, it's over $55 billion in investments and nearly half a billion jobs. And it's how we do it that also matters at the New York Power Authority. So the way we're looking at it is what we call our Vision 2030 renewed. And there's really four key streams that we focus on. One is clean generation, the generation we can, clean energy transition. So on the far right, or far left rather, what you see is not only our hydro facilities and the investments that we're doing, like Next Gen Niagara, which is about $1.2 billion project that is refurbishing the flexibility of that, to account for the insert of non-dispatchable resources like solar and wind and things like that. The hydro plants are going to have a wide variability of operating range, so we're working on that constantly. But we also in 2023 got the legislative authority to expand renewables. So our remit on that is contingent on a number of external factors like the tax credits that Adam referred to and others have referred to throughout the conference here. But storage is still a very viable option, and we did safe harbor a number of investments in renewables across the state as well, and we're motivated to do that. That legislative authority also had us look at what we call the Decarbonization Leadership, or DL15, where we're hoping to decarbonize or support the decarbonization with master plans of all the 15 of the top emitters of state facilities. So SUNY, OGS, some of the other state agencies, we're looking to decarbonize there as well. Transmission development, to tie it all together, to make it as flexible as possible. We've been charged with creating a number of transmission corridors and enhance those to get energy down to this Zone J and K. If you look at the geography of New York, most of the generation is upstate, most of the load is right here. And so trying to, make sure those corridors are open for generation to get down here is also a very important part of our mission. I should go back to generation for a little bit too, because after listening to Brian, we are charged with decarbonizing our fleet that I talked about, the peakers down here in zones J and K. It's been a challenge, not from the standpoint of there's not ideas that can do it. We have a couple of carve-outs on that. One is we cannot decrease the reliability of the system. The New York ISO gives us guidance on the broad bulk system, but our local partners, Con Ed and PSEG, Long Island, and LIPA, talk about a lot of the local reliability needs. So it's been a challenge for us to come up with ideas that not only can, we can switch over to other technology we can switch over to, but that would actually not create a reliability issue. The second caveat is we cannot decommission anything that would actually force another more carbon emitting resource into service. And that's another challenge for us because we're among the cleaner peaker units there. So I just wanted to mention that as well. We talked a lot about the customers here. And one thing you might not know is we also operate the New York State Canal System, which many of you may know as the Erie Canal. Very historical asset, 200 years old. We celebrated the bicentennial last year. A lot of synergies around impounding water and the hydro and so forth, but another asset that we have. So this is kind of a slide just kind of talking about, again, more of the how we're doing this. We are trying to build a more flexible backbone for the system. We are advancing renewables as much as we can. We'll be creating a dashboard that will be publicly available probably within a month to show some of the projects that we're working on that are still got a lot of ways to go. Some of them, the issue is if a project was a slam dunk in a renewable, it's getting done. If it's impossible, it's not getting done. So we're really focused on the ones that are marginal. Like where can we help to get something over the line? And that's kind of where our focus is on the renewables. Infrastructure we talked about, just billions of dollars in transmission and generation upgrades. And then the digital infrastructure to see this and to monitor it, that's key to us as well. So we do a lot of, many years ago, about 9 years ago now, we got certified in ISO 55001. That's a Commonwealth standard that was from a publicly available standard 55 on asset management. And that helps us as well, not only make good decisions like reliability, center maintenance, but it also gives us credibility with our customers that we're doing the right things at the right time, that we're not overspending, but we're keeping the reliability up. So we're focused on those as well. And the way we do it is by taking care of our employees. So we like to brag about our rankings in the Forbes ratings for best employer. Like to keep these guys engaged and doing good work. So talking about I'm going to use my cheat sheet here for this because I want to make sure I get it all right. But in terms of the ground source heat pumps and geothermal projects, there's two here that we're featuring. There's other ones that we are involved with. Today, actually, at the White Plains headquarters, we are building a new building across the street from our own headquarters right now. That building with the energy efficiency, the envelope, the solar, the ground source heat pumps is going to use 50% less energy than the one we reside in today. They're actually flushing the system today as we speak. I just talked to Dave Work. Some of these guys will know, but he said they're flushing it today. So we're working on that. So that's 100% geothermal for heating and cooling, which is 141 wells at a depth of about 6,000 feet at that location. And the novel thing about this too is that we're also anticipating that we're going to have partners in the region for a thermal energy network. So we are building stubs in this system to connect to when other partners are coming online. The other one is the University of Buffalo. They are a design leadership partner, the DL15 partner with us with the SUNY system. I have to brag a little bit. My alma mater. I got 3 degrees from the University of Buffalo. I'm the Dean's Advisory Council as well for the Engineering Applied Sciences. And they're doing a lot of innovative work there. I should also mention that of those 15, even though we're there to help them with these master planning, that a lot of them had work in progress, and UB was very out front. And there are a number of different entities that are out front as well. So we're just helping them close those things up and publish those as well. It won't be on this slide here, and I'll move on because I know we're going to have a lot of questions too. But we are also working on the Empire State Plaza as well. That's a multi-phase project that's down the road, but a lot of feasibility working in the Albany area as well on what we're going to do there at that campus. So that's what I have for today.
Looks like we'll have to have NYPA back in Saratoga next year. Want an update on that? All right, let's bring Rachel Carpitella up, talk about what Wendel's thinking.
Thank you. I'm Rachel Carpitella from Wendel. My focus today is on the practical side of decarbonization. Specifically, how can owners and operators move from planning to implementation in a way that is financially manageable and operationally realistic? Our perspective centers on two concepts: the phased implementation and the use of energy performance contracts to reduce risk and accelerate action. You're also going to get an introduction to Grandpa Grid, our legacy energy infrastructure, my alter ego who made his debut this Halloween. Here's a spooky thought, that without careful planning, we won't chart realistic paths forward for our legacy systems to reach energy policy goals. Before we dive into the technical content, a quick word on Wendel. We're an 85-year-old architecture, engineering, and energy services firm with over 350 employees nationwide. What's unique to our integrated model, we design, engineer, and implement energy systems under one roof. We've delivered over $850 million in energy improvements since 2001. And this positions us well to take on, to support taking on complex long-term decarbonization efforts. One of the biggest challenges our clients face is balancing long-term carbon goals with very real short-term budget constraints. Public sector and institutional facilities are dealing with aging infrastructure, deferred maintenance, and competing capital needs. As a result, even organizations with strong climate commitments often hesitate to act because they lack cost certainty, they lack a clear sequence of work, and they are wary of taking on financial or operational risk. We also see something I call perfect plan paralysis. The idea that you have to design the entire end state system before starting any work. That mindset delays action and increases costs over time. Our experience is that decarbonization becomes feasible when we shift away from an all-at-once thinking toward a planned, phased approach that aligns with capital cycles and reduces risk at every step. A phased approach breaks decarbonization into manageable, fundable steps. Phase 1 focuses on high-impact efficiency and enabling infrastructure. These are activities such as controls improvements, lighting, thermal load reduction, and upgrades that prepare the facility for future heat pump or geothermal systems. This phase almost always generates savings and can often be self-funded. Phase 2 is where conversion occurs. Electrification of heating and cooling through geothermal, air source, heat pumps, or hybrid configurations, along with the necessary distribution and controls work. By this point, the loads are lower, the systems are right-sized, and the investment is more affordable. Phase 3 focuses on optimization and renewables once the core systems are in place. The benefits of the sequencing are significant. It aligns with available capital. It reduces operational disruption. It allows owners to build confidence as they progress, and it ensures that each step informs the next. This creates a practical, affordable path toward low-carbon buildings while maintaining reliability and fiscal responsibility. I'm going to move quickly through the next slides. What you're seeing is not a list of solutions. It's a strategic plan building in layers. Each step adds complexity and capability, starting with energy efficiency, then energy recovery, then alternative fuel transportation, and eventually a critical review of infrastructure like steam systems. The key point is that decarbonization doesn't start with geothermal or heat pumps. It starts by deliberately preparing the system so that those investments make sense later. This slide shows where that layered strategy runs into real-world conditions. This was part of the Decarbonization Leadership Program that Joe talked about earlier. On campuses like this Stony Brook University example, with about 150 buildings, legacy steam systems, buried infrastructure, and critical facilities, there's no single decarbonization solution that works everywhere at once. This is why phasing is essential. It allows owners to sequence solutions, manage risk, and address infrastructure step by step instead of trying to solve everything simultaneously. As the strategy continues to evolve, thermal energy becomes part of the conversation. This is an important transition point because space heating and hot water are typically the largest sources of emissions on campuses and in municipal facilities. And addressing thermal loads effectively requires that earlier efficiency and infrastructure work is already underway. As thermal energy enters the strategy, the next question becomes whether geothermal is even viable at scale. Under New York's Decarbonization Leadership Program, under NYPA's leadership, we led the DL15 test borehole investigations across 11 campuses, including higher education, correctional facilities, and healthcare environments. The purpose of this phase was not system design, it was risk reduction. These investigations provided real subsurface data to confirm feasibility, inform future system sizing, and give owners confidence before committing to capital. Once thermal resources are understood, the focus shifts into implementation, integrating geothermal and other thermal systems along efficiency and renewables. As thermal systems are electrified, grid capacity and rate impacts have to be addressed deliberately as part of the phased rollout. Energy storage, both thermal and electrical, supports implementation by managing peak demand, costs, and operational resilience. At this stage, operations and maintenance considerations are built into system designs, so new thermal assets remain reliable and manageable long-term. Phasing also allows emerging technologies to be incorporated where they add value, rather than forcing early adoption. By this point, decarbonization is no longer theoretical. Thermal systems are implemented, supporting infrastructure is in place, and the owner is operating within a coordinated, phased path toward a carbon-neutral energy system. Energy performance contracts strengthen phased decarbonization by reducing financial and operational risk. An EPC guarantees the energy performance of the improvements. That means owners receive cost certainty, they know the savings will be delivered, and the work is completed through a single accountable delivery model. This structure solves two major barriers. First, the uncertainty around performance. Second, the challenge of timing investments. Because EPCs allow owners to leverage future savings to help pay for near-term upgrades that otherwise might be deferred, items such as distribution improvements, load reduction, and controls upgrades that pave the way for geothermal and electrification. When combined, EPCs and phased implementation create a clear, financeable, and lower risk path from planning to execution. This delivery model is what allows owners to say yes earlier, rather than waiting for the perfect, fully funded solution to appear. I'll briefly share a real example that brings together phasing, geothermal, and EPC delivery model. This is a student life geothermal project at a higher education campus in Ohio. What makes it relevant is not just the technology, but how the project was sequenced and financed to make electrification feasible within the institution's constraints. This project followed the same practical decarbonization model that I've been describing, phased implementation with a risk managed through energy performance contract. Before this geothermal system was implemented, the owner focused on groundwork, reducing loads, planning distribution upgrades, and ensuring systems would be compatible with low temperature operation. The early phase mattered. It allowed the campus to right-size the geothermal system and avoid overbuilding capacity. By the time geothermal was installed, the project was no longer an all or nothing proposition. It was the logical next step in a longer-term decarbonization plan. In phase 2, the campus implemented a centralized geothermal heat pump plant supported by fourth-generation low-temperature distribution. The well field includes several hundred vertical boreholes, and the plant consists of 6 magnetic-bearing heat pumps serving student life facilities. The key point is not the exact quantities. It's that the system was designed to serve existing buildings while allowing future connections as additional phases move forward. Because earlier efficiency planning work had already been reduced demand, the geothermal system could be sized more affordably and operate more efficiently. This slide brings together the scope, phasing, and financial performance. The geothermal plant, wellfield, and distribution were delivered as part of a single coordinated phase that fit within the institution's capital and operational limits. Electrification concerns like electrical service upgrades and reliability were addressed as part of the same scope. Importantly, this project was delivered through an energy performance contract. That structure provided performance guarantees, cost certainty, and a clear path to move forward without waiting for ideal conditions. The total project cost was approximately $4.5 million with a 14-year payback and positive annual cash flow. The takeaway is this: geothermal became feasible not because the institution accepted more risk, but because the project was phased, right-sized, and delivered through a model that de-risked the investment. This is what makes decarbonization practical and scalable for campuses, municipalities, and other institutions. Thank you.
That was terrific, and good follow-on from NYPA, doing work for NYPA on some of those things. So how does NYPA work with the engineering community? I think neat. And now, we have to bring an outsider, and it's a little like we had the Canadian before. Now we've got someone from Vermont. It's the same country, I've been told, but they do have a different set of pressures, and I do think that it's nice to have people from across the border come and talk to us. Good luck, Richard.
So many thoughts right now. John, first, thank you for inviting me to this conference, and our colleagues as well here. And thank you for the socks. I love the socks. The brown is a little funny, the color, yeah. And maybe next year we can get the I Love New York Geo t-shirts, right? Just put the NY in there, right?
Trying to set trends.
Yeah. There might be some trademark issues with the I Love New York part, so you'll work that out, no doubt. Yeah, so why is Vermont invited to this, essentially, discussion here about New York State? John, you say, we're in the United States, but we used to be our land was owned by New York for a long time. And then we kind of declared our independence about 250 years ago. And then we ended up paying $30,000 for the privilege of getting New York to recognize that. So we're New York adjacent, right? And we share lots of things, not a border, but a really beautiful lake up there, Lake Champlain. If you guys have not been to Vermont, I encourage everybody to come up. It's really wonderful. Just wait until the summer, which is between July and August. That's about it. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful time. So I'm going to give you a little introduction to VGS, and then talk a little bit about what's happening in the state of Vermont. That will provide some context for what VGS is doing in Vermont along the lines of decarbonization and geothermal as well. VGS has 55,000 customers approximately. We serve just the upper northwest quadrant of the state, so the state's most populated counties, from the Canadian border down to Middlebury College. And Chittenden County is where VGS is headquartered, and that's the most populated county. So we're a pretty small gas utility. We're the only gas utility in Vermont. Back in 1966, this is our 60th anniversary, happy birthday to VGS, we were innovation in our state. We were displacing what was largely coal and then oil and wood heating in Vermont. So back then, we were innovation. And we've continued that trend throughout the years, right up until the current day. In fact, we are kind of pushing the envelope a little bit about what a gas utility looks and feels like. What's not on this timeline here is in 2020, VGS committed to a climate plan for its own transition. And we took a kind of a three-pronged strategy, several things of which are on this timeline here. I also want to thank Morgan for doing this graph, and I stole it from her, and she let me steal it from her, so thank you. But in 2020, our climate plan was based on three kind of founding principles. Energy efficiency, which we've been doing since 1992, right? Help our customers use less energy, less gas. And then in 2018, we began to invest in renewable natural gas, and we have two projects in Vermont that are based on dairy farms, which capture that methane and then inject it into the pipeline, our pipeline. So that's the second fear. So it's a demand side and then supply side. And then the third thing, the kind of weird thing that we're doing, because a lot of gas utilities are doing demand side and supply side, is that we're involve new business models. So we're looking for ways that we can diversify our business. So a little context about where we are in the state of Vermont. Folks know Vermont has a reputation for a lot of things, including progressive policy, energy policy. And in 2020, the same time we put out our climate plan, Vermont committed to the Global Warming Solutions Act. And not only did they commit to it, the legislature passed that commitment, right? But they also gave the authority for citizens or entities to sue the state if we are not hitting our goals along the path. So fairly radical proposal, controversial as well, but it passed a highly democratic legislature that basically was saying we have to get serious about climate. Climate was of top concern back then. You can see today climate is kind of way down on the list of concerns, right? We've been swept up by that affordability piece as well. Another thing that's happened in Vermont since 2020 is that two of our largest communities, actually the two largest communities we serve, Burlington and South Burlington, they both have restrictions on natural gas and new construction. So South Burlington is a very suburban looking community, and their buildings, when you're building a new building, you have to have renewable heating in that building that can meet 85% of the design day load. So engineers and folks in the room that know the technical side of things, that's basically means you're going to be putting all electric heating in the home. So that's highly restrictive. So those are our two largest communities and some of the greatest growth that we're seeing in terms of new construction. That's serious. That's a serious shot across the bow for natural gas. Other communities nearby, including the one I live in, are leveraging this same kind of strategy and approach with developers in their community. So like a developer will come in and say, I want to build 350 homes, and then the town select board will say, will you commit to going all electric? Will you commit to not bringing fossil on the site? So we're seeing that happening in our communities voluntarily. And then in 2022, legislature passed what was called a clean heat standard, which obligated fossil fuel distributors to essentially earn credits that along the lines of decarbonization. So that meant Vermont Gas would have been an obligated party to essentially deliver decarbonized projects for its customers on a schedule. And if we didn't meet that, there would be what's called an alternative compliance payment. So the legislature passed it, and then the legislature also said, obviously you need to design this program, and so they kicked it to the PUC, the Public Utilities Commission, and they went through a year-long process of designing the program, brought it back to the legislature for what's called a check back, and the legislature said, this is too expensive. This is back when the affordability issue started to rear its head. And so basically it's dead now. It's not going to be put into action. It's not going to be implemented. There's no appetite for that because it was viewed as like a tax or an extra cost onto ratepayers. So that one is no longer in play. However, VGS is sitting here in this uncertain policy environment, and we need to think about how we're going to show up and what we're going to be doing for our plans. So I'm going to start on the second bullet here because it's also important to know that Vermont Gas is not going to be growing, not going to be expanding our pipeline. We're not going to be putting a pipeline down to another community, and there's no appetite in Vermont for that. The last time we did that, it was very controversial, and it cost a lot of money, and it's still actually playing out in the courts. But it's one of those conditional situations here that we have where we need to think about what is our business model, right? You see this chart, this graph here. we're a legacy business. Natural gas distribution is a legacy business. And if you don't innovate, if you don't grow and you don't innovate from that business, then you're probably not going to survive in the future. So we have been a very active participant in all manner of discussions at the state level around carbon policy, around energy efficiency, and we absolutely want to be at the table and not on the menu for the policy decisions that come down the line. And we're taking a lot of actions to basically demonstrate our leadership in this area. We've not been asked by the regulators to explain what the future of gas is in the state. We've not been told by our regulators to do geothermal. We're telling them we want to do geothermal. We're telling them we want to do things like this. So over the last 5 years, since Morgan, again, acknowledge you, we came onto VGS basically with the mission to diversify the utility into other lines of business. So, and really what we're trying to do is position here to give us the greatest optionality, not knowing what the policies are going to be, but we know that they're not going to probably roll back. They're going to continue to go forward. Maybe the pace is going to change. So we're looking for investments in diversified business models that really help meet our customers' needs and work in any policy scenario. And importantly, one of the reasons we can do this is because the regulators acknowledge that when we diversify and generate revenue from other streams, other business models, that helps mitigate rate pressure on customers, right? We're generating a revenue that's accretive to the ratepayer, that's not subsidized by the ratepayer. So 2 examples of this for existing homes, our strategy is hybrid heating. So we're actually installing heat pumps in our customers' homes. Centrally ducted mini splits. We're doing heat pump water heaters. That was our first product. And so that's our strategy for our customers and potentially even beyond where we serve now for the rest of the state. And again, our regulators appreciate what we're doing in that area. There's a deficit of contractors, but also it's that rate pressure mitigation strategy that I talked about. We've been doing water heater installations for 50 years, but there've been gas water heaters. Now we're doing electric water heaters. And then geothermal for new construction, right? This is why we're here talking about geothermal. We're super excited about geothermal. We've been working on this for a long time. As it's been mentioned in many sessions, the business models have been very challenging to do. New construction obviously offers an opportunity to lower those costs as opposed to retrofits. And we have 2 projects that we've teed up that are both going to break ground this summer. And the first one is multifamily affordable housing, and the second one is individual single-family homes. And with that, that's it.
Well done, sir. Look at that. I love my panel.
Thanks, Matt.
Give that back to its owner.
Thank you.
You're smart enough. You're the brain of our operation. We fixed that, though, you see? See, I know I'm hypocritical. I'm texting, but I'm texting like to get his name changed and where are the microphones and how come we don't have cups up here? So I'm still sort of in the room. Let's get to questions. So any questions from the audience? And wait for a microphone to get to you. Say your name, your affiliation, if you have one that you want to talk about.
Eric Wilson from National Laboratory of the Rockies. Question for Richard. You mentioned that diversifying into these new technologies increases like revenue source or diversified revenue sources. I'm just curious the mechanics of that. How does installing geothermal increase revenue for a gas company?
On geothermals specifically? Yeah.
Yeah.
So VGS is going to invest in the ground loops and treat it like a utility asset, and then charge the geothermal ratepayer, a monthly charge for that.
Hi, my name is Asim. I'm a mechanical contractor, and based on the graph that you showed there, from 2015 to 2026, we have an increase of 92% on the gas and 78%
Who's thinking about that one? I think it might have been Brian's slide. So that's, we have a talk.
Was it Brian's?
Sorry. I know I was distracting you. It's always my fault, whatever.
Can you just quickly repeat that? Yeah.
So from 2015 to 2020, there was changes, but not a lot of changes on the price. Now from 13 to 25 cents at gas, 18 to 32 in electrical per kilowatt. So within the 5 years, these changes are 92% on gas, changes increase, and 78% on electrical. How will that support the decarbonization and electrification?
Yeah, so I think that slide was all electric, so that was not showing gas price increases. Yeah, so it was a Western New York electric rate versus a New York State electric rate, just to show that we're seeing significant increases statewide, but in the part of the state where we have a clean grid and not a lot of load growth, we've continued to see increases on the electric side. Yeah.
Okay. Other questions? Somebody in the back there?
Hi, I'm Kevin Ghosh from Rutgers University. In terms of pipe replacement, what are some of the challenges you're facing in terms of, are there any challenges in terms of appropriating current workforce to do that job? Is there any gaps, or is it like you already have that expertise in this?
So is it pipe and pipe replacement for natural gas, or using their expertise in doing pipes for geothermal? What's your...
Pipe to pipe replacement, natural gas pipes to thermal energy network. Is that something you're working on?
So can you leverage your ability to install gas into doing something like a thermal energy network, a non-gas utility?
Particularly from a point of view of workforce development.
Well, I'll let Richard answer too, because they're further along than we are. But yeah, we think that's an advantage of a gas company. We've got a long history of we have geologists on our staff. We operate storage fields. We know how to drill for natural gas and operate underground infrastructure. So we think there's a natural synergy there. We just have to make the economics work.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a really nice translation between our gas utility construction crews, our distribution and maintenance crews, and installing geothermal. A lot of the core skills there, from fusing pipes to getting underground, right? So we do a lot of horizontal, but so vertical is a different skill. But we definitely see long term, if we can demonstrate the market and forecast the type of construction we're going to be doing on the geothermal side, that we definitely want to transition our workforce. There's a lot of interest, I'll say, with our workforce. We actually, during the winter, when things are slower for them, we held, IGSHPA came to town at Burlington and went through the whole certified geothermal course thing with our construction workers. So ton of interest. And then on the inside equipment side as well, we have about 25 field service crews that respond to everything from no heat calls to I smell something funny in my house. And they also could participate in this on the inside, installing the inside equipment as well. So we see nothing but greenfield, therefore, transitioning our workforce over time.
And Joe has just a quick comment on that.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to also mention that at the New York Power Authority, part of the legislation that I spoke about that was part of the budget bill in 2013, the New York Power Authority is committed to putting $25 million into workforce development in all energy sectors, obviously to transition to decarbonize the state. We're working in collaboration with the Department of Labor, and there are applicants in that vein that you described in that system as well that haven't been awarded yet, but there is a pipeline of applicants for that $25 million annually from the New York Power Authority.
Okay, let's try and cram in another question or two. You have one?
Hi, my name is Charles Lawson from Hochul and NYS. I have a question. energy, cost of electricity. We have installed first geothermal systems in 1995 and over 200 systems in the Hudson Valley. And in the last 5-6 years, obviously, customers are asking us, why does this thing cost so much to run? And we look at the bill, and we look at the energy costs that basically very little, but distribution charges, taxes, and everything else is now, I would say, 70% of the bill it's not paying for the actual energy. The heat pump systems, which we primarily installed geothermal heat pump systems, have done their efficiency, COP, P4, whatever it is, but the bills keep going up, and electricity goes up, but then Central Hudson area, where we live, they introduced tremendous amount of increases
Okay.
since 2000.
And the question is,
Yeah, the question
yeah.
is, on one way, we are electrifying, trying to convert to electricity, and another way, when they asked from the Public Service Commission to increase the distribution charges, they always get approved, so now we are paying over 22 cents per kilowatt hour. while
Okay.
the energy costs are only 6%. So how do we square electrification versus allowing ever increasing of distribution charges? That's the question.
So I think no one here is an electric regulated utility, but I would guess that Joe or
I could take a
Brian
stab, and
have
maybe
a
Brian
sense.
will
Yeah.
add, but
Why is that happening?
yeah, I mean,
Quickly.
From our perspective, I think the industry was flat for so long in terms of demand. And I think what we've seen is that we were pretty well prepared for things that people were projecting around electrification of transportation, decarbonization of certain commercial and industrial loads, but massive load growth with onshoring large manufacturing, chip fed, AI, of course, which everybody's talking about now, has just created a significant demand that I think the markets have not quite reacted to at that level. So that's going to require significant infrastructure investment by the distribution utilities. Even if we can create the generation and transmission, the systems locally cannot handle what we're doing here. We don't know how dispersed that's going to be yet. There's still a lot to learn about that. So I think that's having some impact on what you're talking about. I don't know, Brian, if you wanted to.
Yeah, I think from our perspective in Western New York, the natural gas system, we as a utility, we've only increased rates twice in the last 15 years, or requested an increase. I think that's why you need to be able to utilize the lowest cost ways to decarbonize and focus your efforts there. And so if it's like in Western New York, if natural gas is part of that picture because it's a low cost way to get your energy, it should be part of the picture. If there's other alternatives in your part of the state, they should be explored as well.
All right. So unfortunately, we are at time. Did you have something quickly you wanted to say? Or you were good? Oh, good. So we're going to wrap it up. Big hand for my panel. Did a beautiful job. And I'm sure they're going to be around for a little bit, and we're into a break now, so we are breaking, and we are back at 11:45 with, in this room, how will AI impact the geothermal industry? So that should be fun.
You get to keep this one. Thank you.
Hopefully all the panelists don't say, I don't think it will. Something boring like that.
Not allowed.
Yeah, it's always good. Lose that name tag.
I know Phil's rules.
You know this.